All right, turning now to New York. Big case going on there. Opening statements took place in the subway chokehold manslaughter trial of Daniel Penny. Now, I do want to warn you, we're going to show you some video, and the may be difficult to watch. Daniel Penny, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, placed a homeless man, Jordan Neely, in a chokehold, resulting in his death back in May of 2023. Now, prosecutors call it a reckless killing, but Penny claims that it was just self-defense of himself and others. Now, Neely was reportedly behaving erratically, shouting and begging for money on the train, but was unarmed and didn't assault anyone before Penny placed him in a deadly chokehold. Now, Penny has pleaded not guilty to the charges of second-degree manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. The case has renewed arguments surrounding race, homelessness, mental health, perceptions of public safety, and of course, bystanders' responsibility. Penny said he was defending other passengers when he held Neely down in a chokehold for several minutes.
Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers. A lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect.
Now, Penny is free on $100,000 bond, and donors have reportedly raised $3 million for his defense fund. He faces 15 years in prison if convicted of second-degree manslaughter and up to 4 years if convicted of criminally negligent homicide. Cameras are not allowed in this courtroom, but we will update you as soon as we get more details on this trial. All right, let's bring back in our guest still with us. We have defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Marie. All right, he said he's not a hero. Some people call him a hero. I do want to point out there was a large protest outside the courthouse there. Folks calling him, and he's been called this for a while out there, subway strangler. Most of the people out there, people of color, calling this maybe a racial incident. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. We'll discuss that. But let me first begin. He says he's not a hero. Some people say he's a killer. What's your take on this situation?
I think I'm going to reserve my full opinion until I see more videotapes, because I remember when this first came out, I saw tapes that really showed that the victim was very aggressive and was very threatening to the passengers in that subway car. Being a New Yorker myself, I can tell you, I don't ride the subway often, but it is a very dangerous place, and I feel unsafe every time I get on the subway. So for us to say automatically that this is a black and white thing, he killed him because he was a black man, I think we need to wait, because maybe he was trying to protect the other people in the subway cart. Maybe he had no intent or recklessness, disregard for human life, and he was just impulsively acting to protect people from a person who's mentally ill, yes, but could hurt people, yes, also. Where do you draw the line? I think we need to wait and see all the facts before we jump to any conclusions. And for me, I haven't seen enough to say this was racial, this was unjustified, or anything like that so far.
All right, so I'm going to run you through some of the facts, Marie. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, the law, as the way the state said it, the state set it out for the jury, was that a chokehold is permissible only when necessary and for as long as absolutely necessary. They went on to point on the fact that in this particular case, the train came to a stop. He had already had Neely in a chokehold. Everybody left the car except Neely, because he was in the chokehold. He remained in the chokehold. 2 other people were holding him down. And there's going to be testimony from eyewitnesses, folks who are helping hold down, that at some point, Neely just stopped resisting. You know, when you have someone in a chokehold, you no longer can resist because you lose consciousness. People are going to say it appeared he lost consciousness. Now, if you can't hold it beyond what's needed, there's no one left to protect. He is no longer fighting back and may even be, or there will be testimony he was unconscious. What do you say to that?
I think you still have to look at the totality of the circumstances. And I think that his defense team could still argue the adrenaline was going. He's not a chokeologist unless they can prove that he should have known better from the prosecutorial side. One could say he still saw that there was a threat and that he had no intent and there was no depravity there. He's just a man who was minding his business on a train, saw danger to other passengers, did what he could, and he didn't intentionally keep kneeling when the man was dead or near death. I think you have to look at the totality of the circumstances, and there's still an opportunity for his defense team to show that there was no intent, no malice, racism, or anything like that. And I think in New York, in this climate that we're in right now, he has a good chance of being acquitted on these charges.
It's interesting because you're a New Yorker, I'm a New Yorker as well.
Yes, I am.
And the jury obviously made up of New Yorkers. And the testimony is that Neely was screaming at the top of his lungs, yelling at people. People appeared afraid, but he was unarmed. And he hadn't actually assaulted anyone, hadn't touched anyone at that point. As a New Yorker, I'm not going to say this happens every day, but it happens fairly regularly on the subway. People look the other way. People just hope nothing happens. My question is, a bunch of New Yorkers on a jury, are they going to say that this is the type of action we want on our subways in this particular situation, where there were lots of shouting, things like that going all the time in the subway, obviously a mental health issue, no one actually physically harmed to that point. Do you think they're going to want that type of response on our subways?
First off, Michael, I heard it wasn't just screaming. It wasn't just screaming, I love grapes. He was screaming threats and saying, I could hurt people. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He was making threats against the safety, the physical safety of other people. So there's a difference. When we see it, we'll see it. I haven't seen it. You know, the trial is just starting, so we don't know, but that's what I heard. And as far as New Yorkers giving a carte blanche for anybody to just jump in and be superhero chokeologists, even when it's not necessary, I don't think New Yorkers are like that. But I will tell you this. The last time I rode the subway, someone was asking for money and I said no, and he basically almost tried to grab my Neverfull from me. So I'll tell you, if those are the types of people who are on the jury, and you know, they did voir dire already and the case started, but this is not going to help the prosecution because New Yorkers, we're on guard and we're not giving a carte blanche to racism and, you know, unlawful killings, but we do respect somebody who might be trying to protect us. Yeah,
I would have to agree. I don't see this at all, Marie, as being a race issue. I think and he said it, if the person been white, black, whatever, he would have jumped in if that was his sense of what he wanted to do and help people. But do you think it might hurt him, the idea that he is a Marine, he is trained in martial arts, he knows the danger of chokeholds? Will this jury or will this state try to hold him to a little bit of a higher standard?
Absolutely, and that's why I said you have to look at the totality of the circumstances, and I made up the word chokeologist, but you have to know, should he have known that a certain amount of knee on the neck for a certain amount of time could result in death? That's going to hurt him, but at the end of the day, I think the totality of the circumstances, the location of where it happened is going to work in his favor.
Yeah, and the states are going to have a little bit of issue with cause of death, too. The defense is attacking that as well. Not exactly sure exactly how he died. Could have been a heart issue, could have been something else, similar to what we saw in the George Floyd case.